with the explosion of tokens, I want to kind of play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
You want to trade me your headphones for my shoes so that we can trade Roger for his shirt so we can grab Paul's headphones? It becomes complicated when you have to have such different mediums for all of these tokens to be passing back and forth. How do we, there's a reason why we have currencies and there's only so many of them, and it's to facilitate trade. How do we avoid going backwards, and will we go backwards?
Yeah, so I think, you know, the things you mentioned are less liquid and less fungible than a bunch of ERC20 tokens. So, you know, I think if we have liquid markets and accurately priced assets, and we have liquidity, then swapping all these things becomes really easy to kind of, you know, add to the, you know, what Paul was saying about Ethereum. I think what the most impressive characteristic of Ethereum for me is that it has these like second order network effects. So not only is there a network effect around Ethereum, but there's networks built on top of Ethereum that themselves have their own network effects, and that reinforces Ethereum's network effect, or I believe it does. There are definitely people who would disagree with me on that. So, you know, seeing these just decentralized exchanges, like, you know, essentially flip a switch and add an ERC20 token tends to give me confidence in the ability for these swaps to have, you know, to happen. Then I think we start talking about other means of swapping tokens. I think it's going to be fine. And I own a bunch of stocks, and then I have own ETFs that own stocks, and like I probably have like 500 stocks that I own directly or indirectly. And I think most people, if they counted what their pension funds, their college endowments, their you know, their 401ks were invested, I think they'd find that they own a lot more of these assets than they probably originally thought. So I think it's entirely possible.
For investment purposes, but what about for actual everyday use? So like, what about applications that are using utility tokens? So the only one I've seen that actually is...
Oh, yeah. Does every business need its own currency? No. No, it does not. No, it does not.
That's what we're doing right now, and it's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's just too many people are issuing tokens that there's absolutely no need for the token at all. And it's so much more convenient if everybody's using the same token as their medium of exchange there. So, yeah, too many tokens that aren't needed.
Have we seen any good projects besides Brave that have actually shipped something that uses a token?
I think you can look at Bitcoin itself as a token. And so that's the first like super interesting token that was useful.
Okay, it's not the same type of utility thing. It's more value-based utility, but I'll give you that just for the sake of it.
Yeah, you're right. Brave has one. I mean, Funfair, one of our investments, basically helping to build decentralized casinos. They're starting to get into beta. So again, not a lot of usage yet, but you know, things are getting. Augur's launching July 16th. So again, it's around the gambling and gaming space. I think that's kind of where it's going to initially start.
Just the most regulated industries are the ones that are the most ripe to be disrupted by these decentralized technologies. And obviously gambling is right there at the top of the list, but I think securities are right up there as well.
Yes, they are.
I was meeting with a lawyer recently. He came down to visit me in St. Kitts, and he had just come from a meeting with the SEC, and he said the SEC is really trying to figure out like or they're really looking into ICOs. And this was maybe 3 months ago. And I said, let me guess, they have absolutely no idea what they're going to do about it. He goes, how did you know? And I said, because I don't know what they're going to do about it either. Like, what can you do to stop this? And you can grab some people and arrest some people in jail and put them in jail, but that doesn't stop the whole ecosystem in itself. So anyhow, the most regulated industries are the ones the most ripe to be disrupted.